The final ultimatum. John Martinez sat at the large circular table, his face calm despite the tension in the room. Around him, 37 alien delegates from across the galaxy stared with eyes, eye stalks, and sensory organs of all descriptions. None of those stares were friendly. "The Council's position is final, Ambassador Martinez," said Supreme Elder Kazorvac. The tall, blue-skinned Zelaxian's voice echoed through the grand chamber of the Galactic Conclave Station. "Humans will surrender control of the outer colonies within 30 standard days, or face the united might of the Council species." Martinez looked down at his notes without speaking. This was the 5th such demand today. For 3 weeks he had listened to similar threats wrapped in diplomatic language. Behind him, Patricia Winters, his chief aide, shifted slightly in her seat. It was their private signal. They had heard enough. "Perhaps the human needs time to accept reality," said the Vendorian representative, her silver scales catching the light as she made a gesture of mock sympathy. "Their species is young and does not yet understand their place in the greater community." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Martinez noticed how the council members enjoyed their perceived superiority. He had seen this coming for months. Years, really. The reports from human intelligence had been clear. The council had never seen humans as equals, merely as useful newcomers to be controlled and eventually absorbed. "Supreme Elder," Martinez said, his voice quiet but clear. The chamber fell silent, not out of respect, but curiosity at what excuse the human might offer. "The delegation from Earth has listened carefully to all proposals and demands presented over these past weeks." He stood slowly, straightening his dark blue uniform with its single silver star, the simple emblem of Earth's diplomatic corps. "We find that continued discussion under current parameters is no longer productive." A murmur spread through the alien delegates. This wasn't the apology or surrender they had expected. "Humanity hereby withdraws from these peace talks effective immediately," Martinez said. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Several delegates stood, their translator devices struggling to keep up with the sudden outburst of alien languages. Supreme, Elder Kazorvac raised a 4-fingered hand for silence. When the noise settled, he looked at Martinez with his large orange eyes narrowed to slits. "This is most unexpected, Ambassador. Perhaps you misunderstand the situation. These are not optional discussions. The Council has decided the appropriate path forward. Your participation is merely a courtesy we extended." Martinez gathered his electronic tablet and nodded to Winters, who was already standing. "We understand perfectly, Supreme Elder. Earth's position has been made clear in previous sessions. As these talks no longer serve any purpose, we see no reason to continue." The Draconian general, a massive reptilian with scarred scales, growled from across the table. "They seek better terms through this display. Pathetic. The humans will return within a standard cycle, begging for our mercy," said another delegate, to sounds of agreement. Martinez and his small team moved toward the exit. The grand doors of the chamber, 20 feet tall and made of a crystal-like material, slid open before them. "Ambassador," called Kazorvac, his voice now holding a note of uncertainty. "This withdrawal serves no purpose. It will only bring hardship to your people." Martinez paused at the doorway and turned. For the first time, a small smile crossed his face. "That remains to be seen, Supreme Elder. Good day." The human delegation walked through the long corridor toward their ship, passing alien representatives who watched with mixtures of amusement and confusion. None moved to stop them. Aboard the Earth Force One, the sleek diplomatic vessel prepared for departure. Martinez stood at the viewport as the ship detached from the massive space station. "Send the coded message to Earth," he told Winters. Single word, breakwater. She nodded and transmitted the signal that would set countless plans in motion. "Do you think they have any idea what's coming, sir?" Martinez watched as the space station shrank behind them, its golden spires now just tiny points of light among the stars. "No," he said quietly. "They believe their own propaganda about us. That will be their first mistake." As the Earth Force One engaged its drive system, messages flew between Council species. All contained the same dismissive assessment. The humans, would soon return, humbled and ready to accept their terms. None understood that within those few moments in the council chamber, everything had changed. The game the council thought they were playing had ended. A new one, with very different rules, had just begun. The underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains hummed with activity. 3 days had passed since Ambassador Martinez sent the breakwater code. Now, in a room carved from solid granite, Admiral Laura Bennett stood before a table of grim-faced military leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've prepared for this day for 5 years," she said, her voice steady. The holographic display between them showed the positions of human settlements across 3 dozen star systems. Operation Silent Shield is now active. General Paul Wright, head of ground forces, nodded. The evacuation of border colonies began 12 hours ago. Civilian ships are moving on schedule. No panic, no public announcements. The council still believes we're throwing a tantrum, said Commander Diane Foster, intelligence chief. Her screen showed intercepts from council communications. Their analysts predict we'll return to talks within 2 weeks. Admiral Bennett smiled slightly. Then we have the advantage of time. What's our readiness status? Sol system defenses are at full capacity but running in passive mode, reported Admiral Greg Hernandez. All platforms appear dormant to outside scans. The Jupiter installations remain completely hidden. Fleet status? The visible defense fleet is positioned exactly where the Council expects, said Captain Frank Morris. Our actual combat vessels are dark, hidden in the designated locations. Stealth systems functioning perfectly. Bennett walked around the table, studying each report. Communications blackout? In effect, as of this morning, replied Foster. All military channels are running through the quantum network only. The Council believes we're simply being difficult by reducing standard communications. On the main screen, dots of light representing human ships moved in careful patterns. To anyone watching from outside, it would appear as normal traffic, perhaps slightly reduced. In reality, each movement was part of a complex strategic repositioning that had been planned for years. What about Miller? Bennett asked, referring to the human who had defected to the Council years earlier. Our agent confirms he's still feeding them outdated intelligence, Foster said. He truly believes what he's telling them. His clearance was quietly revoked 3 years ago, though he doesn't know it. Bennett nodded and pressed a button on the table. The secure line to the President opened. Madam President, Silent Shield is proceeding as planned. All military assets are in position or moving to designated coordinates. Civilian evacuations from potential target areas are underway. Casualties if the Council attacks as predicted? The President asked. Minimal. The locations they believe are our critical infrastructure are mostly automated or already evacuated. Real assets remain hidden. And our response capabilities? We can demonstrate at whatever level you authorize, from minimal to... Bennett paused. To overwhelming. There was silence on the line for a moment. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Keep to the plan. Minimal engagement unless absolutely necessary. Yes, Madam President. The meeting continued for another hour, with each department head reporting their status. Outside this mountain and a few similar facilities around Earth and Mars, daily life for most humans continued normally. The news mentioned only that diplomatic discussions with the Galactic Council are ongoing. The public had no idea what was truly happening. In space, Council intelligence ships observed human worlds with interest. They noted the slight decrease in ship traffic, the quieter communication channels. They sulk like children, a Vendorian analyst reported to her superiors. Some civilian ships are moving away from border regions, but nothing significant. Their military vessels remain in standard patrol patterns. Her report moved up the chain of command, eventually reaching Supreme Elder Kazorvac himself. The Zalaxian leader read it with satisfaction. As expected, he told the Council's inner circle, the humans make a show of defiance, but they have no real options. Their ships are few, their weapons primitive compared to ours. They will return to us soon enough. The Council members nodded in agreement. None of them questioned why human ships were moving in such specific patterns. None noticed the small, stealthy satellites being positioned near critical jump points. None wondered why certain mining facilities had suddenly reduced production. The silence of humanity was interpreted exactly as intended, as weakness. The Council prepared their next move, confident in their complete misunderstanding of what was truly happening. 3 weeks passed after the humans left the peace talks. The Galaxy Council grew tired of waiting. It was time to show the humans their mistake, they decided. General Exor of the Draconian fleet stood on the bridge of his command ship. His scaled skin gleamed under the lights as he looked at the view screen. Ahead lay the human colony of New Boston, a small world with only 5 million people. "Status report," Exor demanded. His voice was deep and rough. 23 warships in formation, General," his second-in-command replied. "Scan shows minimal defenses around the human world. They have only 3 patrol ships and a small orbital platform." Exor smiled, showing sharp teeth. "As expected, the Council intelligence was correct. Send the message." A young officer pressed several buttons on his control panel. "Message sent, General, demanding immediate surrender of the colony." The bridge fell silent as they waited. Minutes passed. "No response, General," the communications officer finally said. Zor nodded. "They think silence will protect them. Move the fleet forward. Weapons ready, but do not fire unless I command it. The Council wants this colony intact." The massive Draconian ships moved deeper into the system. Their sensors showed nothing unusual. The human patrol ships remained in orbit, making no move to intercept or even change position. "Strange," muttered Zor's second-in-command. "They must know they cannot win. Why don't they flee?" "Humans are stubborn," Zor replied. "It makes them predictable." The fleet crossed the orbit of the system's outer planet, a gas giant similar to Jupiter. Still, the human ships did nothing. "Final approach," reported the navigation officer, "entering optimal strike range in 3 minutes." Zor stood taller, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "Prepare boarding parties. Once we disable their pathetic defenses, we will—" "General!" the sensor officer suddenly shouted. "Energy readings all around us." The view screen flickered. Where empty space had been moments before, dozens of objects now appeared, dropping their stealth fields. They were roughly cylindrical, each about the size of a small shuttle. "What are those?" Zor demanded. "Why didn't we detect them?" Before anyone could answer, the objects began to glow. "Incoming weapons fire!" the tactical officer screamed. The first volley hit the Draconian ships from all sides. Powerful beams of energy sliced through advanced shields as if they weren't there. At the same time, fast-moving projectiles struck with devastating force. "Return fire," Zor ordered. "Target those platforms." But the Draconian weapons could not lock on. The platforms moved too quickly, changing position in ways that defied normal spaceflight. On the view screen, Zor watched in horror as 3 of his largest ships exploded. 4 more drifted with massive damage. In less than 2 minutes, half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships jump out of the system." The surviving ships turned and accelerated away. Behind them, the human platforms did not pursue. They remained in position, guarding the colony. 6 hours later, in the emergency chamber of the Galaxy Council, Exor stood before the assembled delegates. His uniform was torn and a burn marked one side of his face. "Play the recording," ordered Supreme Elder Xorvac. The holographic display showed the battle from beginning to end. The council members watched in stunned silence as the mighty Draconian fleet was decimated in minutes. When it ended, Xorvac turned to Zor. "Explain." "There is nothing to explain," Zor said bitterly. "We were ambushed by weapons technology far beyond what our intelligence said the humans possessed. Those platforms were invisible until they attacked. Their weapons cut through our best shields." "Impossible," said the Vendorian representative. Our intelligence reports clearly state human technology is at least 20 years behind our own. A different voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Perhaps our intelligence was wrong. All heads turned to see Council Security Director Alan Reed. The human defector walked forward slowly. The stealth technology they used is not in any human military database I have access to, Reed said. Their energy weapons are more advanced than anything I've seen. Supreme Elder Xorvac frowned deeply. You assured us you had complete information on human military capabilities. Reed looked uncomfortable. I believed I did. Around the table, council members exchanged worried glances. For the first time, doubt crept into their minds. What else might they be wrong about? In his private chamber after the meeting, Xorvac reviewed the battle footage again. The easy victory he had promised the council had turned into a humiliating defeat. And this was just one small human colony. What are you really capable of? He whispered, looking at an image of Earth on his screen. After the military disaster at New Boston, the Galaxy Council needed a new plan. They gathered in the Grand Hall on Centauri Prime, the financial center of galactic trade. Military action is clearly not working, said the Vendorian representative. Her silver scales reflected the soft blue lights of the chamber. But humans have many weaknesses. Their colonies depend on trade. Supreme Elder Xorvac nodded slowly. Yes, cut off their supplies and they will beg to return to talks within weeks. The council voted unanimously. Within hours, the largest trade embargo in galactic history began. All shipments to human worlds were canceled. Human ships were denied docking rights at council stations. Banking systems were ordered to freeze human accounts. Now we wait, Xorvac told the council. Without resources, their colonies will suffer. Earth cannot support them all. But the expected crisis never came. 1 week later, the council's trade minister burst into Xorvac's private office. The normally calm Arcturian was clearly upset. The embargo is failing, he reported. No, worse than failing, it's hurting us more than the humans. Xorvac frowned. Explain. Human trade had already been redirected before we started the embargo. Their ships stopped visiting our ports 2 weeks ago. But that's not the real problem. The trade minister placed a data pad on the desk. These are reports from across council space. Businesses are shutting down because they can't get certain materials anymore. What materials? Specialized medicines, advanced computer components, synthetic metals only humans know how to make properly. The trade minister looked worried. We never realized how dependent some of our industries had become on human goods. Xorvac picked up the data pad, his orange eyes widening as he read. This can't be right. Tagarister 4 reports all mining operations are shutting down? Yes, the automated equipment is failing. It turns out the control systems were designed by humans. They're not responding to reset commands. The news grew worse over the next few days. On 17 council worlds, manufacturing stopped because key components were no longer available. Hospitals reported shortages of 3 vital medications. Only human pharmaceutical companies produced. On Centauri Prime, the situation became critical. The planet's economy depended on the galactic banking system. For years, this system had run on algorithms designed by human mathematicians. Now those algorithms were developing unexplained errors. They built backdoors into everything they sold us, realized Council Security Director Alan Reed too late. We thought we were buying simple goods and services, but they were positioning themselves all along. In the financial district of Centauri Prime, the last human banker on the planet, Counselor Elizabeth Ryan, quietly closed her office. She had served as an advisor to the galactic banking system for 15 years. Now she packed a small bag, deleted her files, and headed to the spaceport. A Zalaxian banking official stopped her at the entrance. Counselor Ryan, where are you going? We have an emergency meeting about the system failures. She smiled politely. I'm afraid I've been recalled to Earth. Good luck with your meeting. But you're the only one who understands how to fix these problems. Yes, she said simply. That was by design. Her small personal ship departed an hour later. The next morning, the unified credit system that handled transactions for thousands of worlds began to collapse. Without human technicians, no one could stop it. In an emergency council meeting, representatives argued loudly about what to do next. "We must lift the embargo immediately," shouted the Arcturian delegate. "No, that would show weakness," replied the draconian representative. Supreme Elder Kazorvak sat silently, reading new reports from across council space. The humans had prepared for this conflict long before they walked away from the peace talks. Every system, every technology, every trade relationship had been carefully designed to give them leverage when needed. "They're not just fighting us," he said quietly, interrupting the argument. "They built our economic infrastructure so they could control it." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The council had believed they were punishing humans with the embargo. Instead, they had triggered a trap set years ago. "What do they want?" asked a junior delegate from a small world. Kazorvak looked up from his reports. "That's what worries me most. They haven't made any demands. They haven't contacted us at all." Outside the council chamber, news of shortages spread across galactic communications. For the first time, citizens of council worlds began to question the wisdom of challenging humanity. 60 days had passed since humans walked away from the peace talks. The Galaxy Council struggled with failed military actions and a backfiring economic embargo. Now they faced a new problem. Admiral Zinn of the Vendorian fleet stared at her communication screen in confusion. The orders she had just received made no sense. "Confirm these coordinates," she told her second-in-command. "We're being ordered to the Proxima system. That can't be right." "The orders are properly coded, Admiral," her officer replied. "They came through the secure channel." Across council space, similar scenes played out. Military ships received conflicting orders. Supply vessels arrived at empty coordinates. Defense codes changed without warning. In his private chambers on the council homeworld, Supreme Elder Kazorvak was awakened by an urgent message. When he activated his screen, he found himself looking at his own private files that should have been impossible for anyone to access. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. A simple message appeared on his screen. "We know everything, we always have." The next morning, council members arrived for an emergency meeting to find their private discussions from the previous day playing on all screens in the chamber. Word-for-word quotes of what had been said in supposedly secure rooms filled the displays. "How is this possible?" asked the Arcturian representative. "These rooms are swept for devices hourly." Before anyone could answer, every personal device in the chamber activated simultaneously. A message identified as EarthNet Diplomatic Interface appeared on all screens. The message contained detailed information about council military readiness, resource shortages, and private communications between officials. Information no outsider should know. "Find whoever is responsible," Kazorvak ordered. Security teams searched for days but found nothing. Then council citizens began receiving direct messages on their personal devices. The messages revealed secrets about council leadership, their private deals, their true assessments of the war readiness, their lies about human threats. Public trust in the council collapsed overnight. Director Alan Reed, the human defector, who had become the council's intelligence chief, was called to explain. He looked pale as he addressed the council. "The humans must have agents we never detected," he suggested. "Perhaps they planted devices years ago." "Your job was to understand human capabilities," Kazorvak reminded him coldly. "You assured us their technology posed no threat." Reed returned to his quarters that evening, troubled by the day's events. He checked his rooms for listening devices, as he always did. Finding nothing, he poured himself a drink. Hours later, security officers found him dead at his desk. The only evidence was a small data crystal containing a single message: "We know everything. We always have." At the next council meeting, an uncomfortable truth emerged. For decades, humans had shared communication technology with other species. The quantum relays, data encryption, and network systems used throughout council space had all been built with human assistance. They embedded surveillance in everything they helped us build, realized the draconian representative. Every word we've spoken, every plan we've made, they've been listening all along. Across council worlds, citizens watched in shock as the EarthNet diplomatic interface released more private council communications. Records showed council leaders had planned to control human worlds from the beginning, never seeing them as equals. In the council chamber, Xorvac faced angry representatives whose citizens were demanding answers. "We must find a way to communicate that the humans cannot monitor," he said. A junior technician cleared his throat nervously. "Supreme Elder, that may not be possible. Our analysis shows human programming in every level of our communication systems. It would take years to replace it all." "Then how do we fight an enemy who can hear our every word?" asked the Arcturian representative. No one had an answer. That night, Xorvac worked late in his office, writing plans by hand on paper, the only method he now trusted. A message appeared on his screen despite the system being turned off. Military option, failed. Economic option, failed. Information. Security, compromised. What will you try next? For the first time, Xorvac felt a cold sense of fear. The humans weren't just fighting back. They had prepared for this conflict long before it began, positioning themselves perfectly for a war the council didn't even realize it was losing until too late. And still, Earth had made no demands, requested no concessions. They simply demonstrated, again and again, how completely they controlled the situation. After 3 months of failures, the Galaxy Council decided on a final massive military strike. Their target, Earth itself. If they could threaten humanity's homeworld, surely the humans would return to negotiations. "All available fleets will converge on the Sol system," announced Supreme Elder Xorvac to the Council. 500 warships from 23 species. The humans cannot possibly stand against such force. The plan was simple. The combined fleet would jump into the outer Sol system, bypass the colony defenses that had proven so troublesome at New Boston, and proceed directly to Earth. There, they would demand immediate surrender. "What of the human defenses around their homeworld?" asked the Arcturian representative. "Our newest intelligence suggests their main fleet is scattered across their colonies," replied the draconian general who had replaced the disgraced Xor. "Earth itself has only standard orbital platforms, nothing that can stop our combined might." The massive fleet assembled at a staging area 3 light-years from Sol. It was the largest military force ever gathered in the galaxy's history. Commanders received their final orders and the fleet prepared to jump. "Victory will be ours by day's end," Xorvac told his inner circle confidently. The jump took less than an hour. The fleet emerged near the orbit of Neptune, the outermost major planet in the Sol system. Long-range sensors immediately began scanning for human defenses. "Minimal activity detected," reported a sensor officer on the Xylaxian command ship. "A few patrol vessels near Mars. Standard orbital platforms around Earth, no major fleet presence." Xorvac smiled. As expected, they've spread themselves too thin. The massive fleet moved inward, passing the orbit of Uranus, then Saturn. Still, human forces made no move to intercept them. "They must be preparing to surrender," suggested a Vendorian commander. Then the fleet approached the orbit of Jupiter, the massive gas giant. Sensors showed nothing unusual about the planet or its many moons. "Passing Jupiter's orbit now," reported the navigation officer. At that moment, everything changed. Jupiter's moons lit up with energy readings. What had appeared to be small research stations revealed themselves as massive military installations. Huge doors opened on the surfaces of Ganymede, Europa, Callisto, and Io, exposing weapon systems of incredible size. "Incoming fire," shouted the tactical officer. The first volley from Jupiter's moons targeted the front third of the Council fleet. Antimatter beams, weapons the Council had believed were only theoretical, lanced out across space. Where they touched Council ships, matter simply ceased to exist, leaving perfect spherical holes through armor, shields, and crew. "Return fire," ordered Xorvac, his voice shaking. All ships target those moon bases. The Council fleet fired back with everything they had, but their weapons impacted harmless shields around Jupiter's moons, shields that glowed slightly but held firm. A second volley from the moons destroyed another section of the fleet. At the same time, hundreds of small, fast vessels emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. They moved in patterns no Council ship could match, firing weapons that ignored conventional shields. "We've lost 30% of the fleet," reported the tactical officer, his voice rising in panic. "Another 20% heavily damaged." Still struggling to comprehend what was happening, Kazorvak received urgent communications from across Council space. Supposedly uninhabited star systems suddenly showed human activity. Stealth bases hidden for years activated powerful defense, grids that cut off critical Council worlds from each other. Key transportation routes fell under human control within hours. It was a trap, Kazorvak realized too late. They wanted us to attack Earth. They wanted our main fleet here. Throughout, the remaining Council fleet captains made desperate decisions. Some fought on. Others attempted to jump away, only to find jump points blocked by more human ships that appeared from nowhere. In the Galactic Conclave Station, Council members watched in horror as reports came in. Their mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed. At the same time, human forces throughout the galaxy seized control of vital systems and routes. Junior analysts, desperately searching archives for answers, discovered disturbing patterns. For decades, humans had consistently underreported their military capabilities, industrial output, and technological advancement. The peaceful, somewhat backward species the Council thought they knew had been an elaborate facade. By day's end, less than a fifth of the Council's grand fleet limped back to friendly space. Earth hadn't just defended itself, it had revealed a military capability beyond anything the Council had imagined possible. And still, Earth made no demands. The Council fractures. The Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 37 species sat in stunned silence as reports of their military defeat continued to arrive. The Great Fleet, pride of the Galaxy Council, had been reduced to scattered survivors limping back to safe harbors. Supreme Elder Zorvak stood at the center of the chamber, his blue skin pale with stress. For the first time in Council history, he faced open rebellion from the assembled delegates. "You led us into disaster," accused the Arcturian representative, rising from her seat. "Your hatred of humans has cost us dearly." "The Zalaxians assured us of victory," added the Vendorian delegate. "Now my homeworld is cut off by human control points. Our people face resource shortages within weeks." Kazorvak raised his hands for quiet. "We must stand together against the human threat. If we divide now—" "What threat?" interrupted a delegate from a small outer world. "The humans have taken no aggressive action except in defense. They attacked no civilian targets. They made no demands." Private communication devices buzzed throughout the chamber as more news arrived. The Draconian representative checked his screen and stood abruptly. "The humans have established control points around my homeworld," he announced. "But they are allowing civilian ships to pass freely. Only military vessels are blocked." Similar reports came from other representatives. Throughout Council space, human forces had secured strategic positions, but were interfering minimally with civilian activities. Food, medicine, and other essential supplies were still flowing. "I have a message from my government," said the Arcturian representative. "They have opened direct communication with Earth, seeking separate peace terms." The chamber erupted in noise. Kazorvak shouted for order, but his authority was crumbling. "Treason. The Council must act as one," he insisted. "The Council is finished," replied the Arcturian coldly. "Your policies have failed. My people will not suffer for your pride." One by one, representatives announced similar positions. Some had already begun peace talks with Earth. Others demanded new leadership before negotiations could begin. In a private room adjacent to the main chamber, Zorvak met with his few remaining allies. His aide showed him reports from across Council space. On the Zalaxian homeworld, Massive public protests filled the capital city. Signs in multiple languages demanded peace with Earth and new leadership now. The public has turned against us, his aide explained. The EarthNet messages revealed too many secrets. Citizens know we misled them about human intentions. Xorvac paced the room. We cannot surrender to humans. They are inferior, less advanced. With respect, Supreme Elder, interrupted a Zelaxian general, we must accept the reality. Their technology exceeds ours. Their strategic planning was flawless. They predicted our every move. One final option remains, Xorvac decided. A direct strike at the human leadership. Not a military attack, but a targeted operation. If we can eliminate their key decision-makers, perhaps we can still negotiate from strength. The others looked uncomfortable but nodded in agreement. Within hours, a small elite team of operatives departed on a stealth ship bound for Earth. They never arrived. Instead, every council homeworld received simultaneous evidence of human stealth ships in their own orbits, weapons locked on planetary capitals. The message accompanying these revelations was simple. We could have done this at any time. Images from the stealth ships showed human vessels had been positioned above every major council world for years, undetected by the best security systems in the galaxy. On the Arcturian homeworld, the ruling council voted unanimously to remove their representative from the Galaxy Council. By day's end, 11 other worlds had done the same. In the now half-empty council chamber, Xorvac received one final message from Earth. It contained only 5 words. Ready to talk when you are. For the first time, he understood the true scope of humanity's plan. They had never wanted war. They had simply ensured that if war came, they would win decisively. That evening, in his private quarters, Xorvac drafted his resignation. The time for pride had passed. The Galaxy Council, as it had existed, was finished. Whatever came next would include humans as equals, perhaps even as leaders. Across the galaxy, citizens of council worlds watched their night skies with new understanding. The stars above them had never been as empty as they'd believed. Human eyes had been watching. All along, patient and prepared. 100 days after withdrawing from the peace talks, humanity extended a new invitation. This time, the location was on Earth, in the ancient United Nations building in New York. The structure had stood for over 500 years, rebuilt, and preserved as a symbol of humanity's first attempts at global cooperation. Council representatives arrived nervously, expecting to face stern military leaders or harsh politicians. Instead, they found a different welcome. Ambassador John Martinez stood at the entrance, the same calm diplomat who had walked away from the council chamber months ago. With him were not generals or admirals, but scientists, artists, and educators. "Welcome to Earth," Martinez said, shaking hands with each delegate. "We're pleased you accepted our invitation." The Arcturian representative looked confused. "We expected different terms after your victory." Martinez smiled. "This isn't about victory. Please follow me." The Grand Hall of the United Nations was filled with light from tall windows. The walls displayed art from both human and alien cultures. At a round table, symbolically equal for all participants, comfortable seats awaited each species. Supreme Elder Xorvac entered last, his pride visibly diminished. He had survived the political upheaval, but now served only as an ordinary representative of his people. His eyes widened when he saw no weapons, no military presence, no signs of the technological might that had so thoroughly defeated the council forces. Once all were seated, Martinez opened the session. "We never wanted war," he said simply. "What you interpreted as withdrawal from talks was actually our attempt to demonstrate without excessive bloodshed the futility of conflict between us." Dr. Karen Powell, Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, stepped forward. The tall woman, with gray hair, spoke clearly and directly. "For decades we studied each council species," she explained. "We learned your histories, your psychologies, your cultures. We discovered something important. None of you would accept us as equals based only on our word." Powell activated a display showing the history of each council species. Each had faced similar moments in their past, times when only a demonstration of strength had prevented conflict. "We knew you wouldn't believe our capabilities without demonstration," she continued. "Your histories showed that each of your species needed to learn this lesson before true cooperation became possible." Around the table, delegates shifted uncomfortably as they recognized the patterns from their own histories. Martinez distributed tablets containing Earth's proposal for peace. As the delegates read, expressions of confusion turned to surprise. "These terms are generous," said the Vendorian representative. "You ask only for equal representation in council affairs, no reparations, no territorial concessions." "That's all we ever wanted," Martinez confirmed. "Equal partnership in galactic affairs. But after what we tried to do to you," began the draconian delegate. "War serves no one," Powell said. "Your civilizations know this, as does ours. We demonstrated our strength not to dominate you, but to create the foundation for lasting peace." For the next 3 days, representatives worked through details of the new agreement. Human experts shared insights on technology, medicine, and science. Council representatives were shocked to learn how much humans had held back during previous exchanges. "Why didn't you share these advances before?" asked a junior delegate. "Would you have valued them properly?" Martinez replied gently. "Or would you have taken them as confirmation of your superiority, that you could extract our knowledge without treating us as equals?" The delegate had no answer. On the final day, the Earth Accords were signed in the historic chamber. The new agreement dissolved the old Galaxy Council and established a galactic union of equal members. Earth would have the same status as founding species, with the same rights and responsibilities. That evening, Martinez and Powell watched the sunset from the UN building's balcony. The city lights of New York began to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "Do you think they understand now?" Powell asked. Martinez nodded slowly. "They're beginning to, and sometimes that's enough to build upon." Below them, human and alien representatives mingled freely at a celebration dinner. Already conversations about joint projects, cultural exchanges, and shared research filled the room. "We revealed our strength," Powell said, "but perhaps our true power was always in knowing when not to use it." Martinez smiled. "The hardest victory is the one that looks like peace." Above them, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Soon ships would depart for worlds across the galaxy, carrying news of a new era, one built not on fear or domination, but on the unexpected wisdom of a species that had prepared for war while always preferring peace.